Meeting, as usual, broadcast live by the website and archived so you can look at it later. Usual stuff, microphones on to speak and off when finished. Apologies, we've got Ozzy O'Shea, who's unwell, who may well join us online. Any others? Nope, good. Item 1, minutes 3 to 18. I move that the minutes held on the 23rd September 2022 are taken as read, confirmed and signed as a correct record. Deborah?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Urgent items. There is one. Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman's report regarding adult social care. A joint report from the Director of Law and the Director of Adults and Communities. It's urgent because it was published last Thursday after the agenda for this meeting was circulated, and in light of the timescales required by the Ombudsman, it's best we consider it today rather than waiting for the November Cabinet meeting. This will be considered at item 9 on the agenda. 3, declarations of interest. We have none. 4, Net Zero Leicestershire Strategy and Action Plan, pages 19 to 164 and supplementary pages 3 to 36. This report sets out the findings of the public consultation on the action plan. Revised versions are appended to the report, and we're asked to agree that they are submitted to full council on December the 5th. We've got Anne with us here who's going to run through it. Can we note that the Environment and Climate Change Overview and Scrutiny Committee looked at this report on October the 20th, and a draft minute is attached to this order paper marked 4A. We've also got comments from Max on behalf of Labour. These are attached to your order paper marked 4B. Over to you, Anne.
Thank you, Leader. As the Cabinet is aware, we've recently been out to consultation on our draft Net Zero Strategy and Action Plan. As a reminder, that strategy and action plan will set out how Leicestershire County Council will seek to work with stakeholders and organisations across the county to deliver on our net zero target by 2045 for the county. The consultation on the draft ran from early May to late July, and we had around 1,400 responses. Engagement included specific, if I can even say it, youth engagement survey, which saw responses from just under 600 young people aged between 7 and 25. That fed into the mix overall, which I think was a real positive because it's, as you know, often really hard to reach groups. A summary of the consultation findings is provided in paragraph 28 to 38, and the consultation summary report is appended as Appendix A. The results of the consultation responses have resulted in a number of changes to the document, and they're set out in paragraph 39. As the leaders mentioned, the Environment and Climate Change Scrutiny Committee considered this report, and key areas of discussion with the committee included a question from a member of the public on how transport emissions would be reduced, as it was recognised this is an extremely challenging area to deliver on. The Council's new local transport plan, which will be produced next year, will be key in setting out strategies and activities that will help address that agenda. The committee also considered funding to support the agenda, the concept of fairness, the long-term nature of the strategy, and the lack of smart targets. The minute is appended in the order paper. We also have had, as the leaders mentioned, a Labour group submission for Cabinet's consideration. Key point made is that submission is that the action plan should focus on fewer but measurable short-term actions and use 5-year cycle of carbon budgets to track progress. In response, what I would put to Cabinet is the action plan has around 30 priority actions focused over a 5-year period, and that will be refreshed annually with an end-of-year performance report. So I would argue we do have, a measure of tracking in the short term, and we do have prioritised actions within the action plan support delivery of the strategy. Concerns about partnership working were also raised. We have developed our approach to working with partners and stakeholders as a priority, while we've been simultaneously implementing a range of practical measures, such as energy efficiency to street lighting, renewable energy usage, and developing projects such as Solar Together and the Sustainable Warmth Programme. The final Net Zero Strategy and Action Plan are appended to the report as Appendix B and C, and Cabinet's asked to endorse these for submission to the County Council for approval at its meeting on the 7th of December, and the full recommendations as per the order paper.
Yes, you're right there. It is the 7th, not the 5th. Blake?
Thank you, Leader. I just want to take the opportunity to thank Anne and her whole department. There's too many people in the department to name by name, but they've put in a real shift to get this strategy into a position that it can be before us today, and then it will be forwarded on to full council. I think the key point here is a key manifesto commitment of our administration to deliver a green council on a green agenda, and this strategy certainly sets us on our way. We've already spoken about the objectives we wish to achieve, which is to become carbon neutral as an authority by 2030, and then hopefully wider Leicestershire to become carbon neutral or net zero, not carbon neutral, net zero by 2045. Obviously, that is a huge challenge. There's a lot of volatility, a lot of things that are outside of this council's control, frankly. So we note Max Hunt's response on behalf of Labour to the Cabinet report, but all I'd say in addition to what the Director has just said is that we are not in a position to control every aspect of every action of this agenda. We have made it absolutely plain that we wish to work with other organisations, partnership with businesses out there, residents, and try and cultivate and nurture an environment where people feel it just that they take good climate action behaviour seriously, and hopefully collectively we can achieve the objectives that we've set ourselves. The council is now focused on the delivery of the actions within the plan and engaging with the residents, communities and businesses to help achieve the net zero ambition together. Net zero also provides the council an opportunity to demonstrate leadership, strengthen relationships with stakeholders and further deliver wider co-benefits of taking action on climate change. A clean, green Leicestershire will help to build strong, healthy and green communities, create jobs and boost local skills, in addition to helping to tackle the cost of living and energy security through measures such as home insulation and using local renewable energy. Like I've already said, we can't do this alone. We need a team effort, and everyone can help make changes to make net zero a reality. And collectively, we can make a big difference. I move the motion. Thank you, Leader.
Good, and I'm happy to second it, Blake. And as you said, it's about leadership, and this County Council wants to be the leader in Leicestershire. Any other comments for Blake or Anne? No, good. All in favour of the recommendations? Thank you. 5, treatment of post-2020 residual waste procurement. This is on pages 165 to 172. The report advises us on the procurement of capacity for the treatment of Leicestershire's residual household waste. And for the record, that is waste that can't be disposed of through reuse, recycling or composting. We've had comments from Loughborough Air Quality Protection Group, which were marked 5A on the order paper. We've also got comments in from Max again on behalf of the Labour Group. These are marked 5B, and Anne will speak, and then I'll go to Blake. Anne.
Thank you. As you say, this updates on a 3-year procurement exercise for residual waste. The contract's been awarded to Biffa Waste Services and has now been signed. It will use capacity in the Biffa Newhurst Energy from Waste facility, and information on that facility is included in the appendix to the report. The arrangement will contribute to a number of objectives in our draft resources and waste strategy, specifically around reducing carbon emissions from waste management services, from managing waste within the county into the nearest appropriate facility, and reducing the amount of waste sent to landfill, which we have national targets around. The contract will also contribute to wider waste management savings in our MTFS of 985,000, and it commences in April next year, although I would say that in advance of that, there is likely to be some test loads going into that Newhurst facility. Next steps following the signing of the contract is to engage with the waste collection authorities, the district authorities, to enable them sufficient time to alter their collection arrangements where that is necessary. It won't be for all authorities, but it will be for some. As mentioned, the Labour group has submitted comments, and we will send a full response to the Labour group on those various points raised. However, I would mention that the procurement option requested as part of the procurement exercise was for a non-landfill option. We didn't specify any energy from waste. We didn't specify any specific type of technology apart from non-landfill, and that's the solution the market brought forward. I think the point I would make is if there was other alternatives there, the market would have put them forward. The final point I would make on that is just as a reminder, is a new build facility, so it will be high tech and state of the art, and it will comply with all current environmental regulations. The Loughborough Air Quality Protection Group has also submitted to the Cabinet, requesting that Cabinet defers a decision on awarding to BIFA until further research is carried out on impacts. This paper is not about a decision on awarding a contract. That's already happened and the signing's happened. This is an update to Cabinet. The recommendations to note the award of the contract to BIFA Waste Services, and that is now being signed, so the work will now be undertaken to put those arrangements in place. Thank you.
Blake.
Yes, just to follow on from what the director said, this is about bringing Cabinet up to speed with what's already happened. And I'd maintain that the council as a whole, the policy is to have a technology neutral approach to waste, but we wish to see as minimal amount of waste going to landfill as possible. The environmental performance of Leicestershire's waste service will improve, allowing us to meet the draft resources and waste strategy target of sending less than 5% of residual waste to landfill by 2025. We'll use a local facility based in Leicestershire, which will lead to reduced amounts of waste moved out of the county. Disruption to Leicestershire's waste collection and disposal service will be minimised, as the facility will operate efficiently during poor weather conditions, unlike landfill sites, for instance. And Leicestershire to be a priority customer, moving waste vehicles through the facility quickly, preventing unnecessary waiting times and knock-on delays. We will send waste for treatment at modern, efficient energy for waste facility, which will produce electricity to power homes. So this is a good motion in my view, and I move it accordingly. Thank you, Leader.
Good. Well, I'm happy to second it, because obviously our waste strategy is really reuse, recycle and compost, and also not to put stuff in the ground. These are all good policies. This is a brand new facility, so it is high tech, as you said, Blake, and it is energy from waste. So I'm very happy to second it. I've got Christine.
Yes, thank you, Leader. The facility, as you know, is in my area, and you may all be aware that I campaigned very hard, in fact, to not have it, but we've got it. So we've now got to work with it and to make sure that any planning conditions are adhered to, that is such as going through the SHEP shed itself, except if they've been picking up the black waste and using the A512. I'm disappointed that people are now coming on board about air quality and all this, that and the other. That was when they should have campaigned and support the group that I was part of about getting the facility stopped. We've now got it. We've got to work with it. It is a state-of-the-art facility. And yes, we as a county, we have got to dispose of our waste rather than it going into a landfill site. So all I'm concerned about is we just need to make sure that any of the planning conditions that were put on it are adhered to. Thank you.
I think it's very important that none of the trucks and stuff go through SHEP shed. It's congested enough with the amount of houses it's got, let alone anything else going through there. Blake?
Just to come back on that very serious point, one that's noted, but to be fair, the motion that's before us today is about the contract. The planning conditions preside with the planning and development and regulatory control system of the county council, which is a separate department that I'm sure will take those concerns very, very seriously.
Very good. Moved by Blake, seconded by me. All in favour? Thank you. 6, Household Support Fund 173 to 188 sets out the operation of the Household Support Fund from April 2022 to September 23, and proposals for how we administer the fund in Leicestershire from this month. Richard Hunt, Head of Catering, Hospitality, Country Parks, is here. So over to you, Richard. Nice to see you.
Thank you. The Household Support Fund is a key part of the Council's approach to tackling the cost of living pressures experienced by residents in the county. It's a £3.6 million scheme funded by the Department for Work and Pensions, and this iteration of it runs from October of this year to the end of March 2023. And it's primarily intended to support vulnerable households with food and fuel in this period of uncertainty for many households. The papers before you set out a brief review of the Household Support Fund that ran from April of this year to September of this year. During this period, over 72,000 awards were made to households to support them with food, and over 3,000 awards connected to energy support. We also supported local food banks and other charities that support households with the cost of living. Food and fuel vouchers were awarded to vulnerable households who were referred to us by third parties, including local charities, schools and district councils, and we're grateful to these bodies for supporting this scheme. We also continue to support families on free school meals with vouchers for 7 weeks of these school holidays. The final elements of the Household Support Fund in the last iteration was a direct payment of £100 made to all pensioners in the county in receipt of pension credit. This was via a voucher that could be redeemed at a local pay point, and around 75% of those vouchers have already been successfully redeemed. We've also been able to support the Warm Homes Service with the creation of emergency heating packs that will support residents throughout the winter months. So the new version of the Household Support Fund that's in the papers before you is planned to commence on the 26th of October. The main changes are set out in the report and revolve around the fact that the Department for Work and Pensions has removed the previous ring fences that were within the fund. We are proposing to continue to support free school meals provision in the holidays with an increase in the average amount paid per week from £15 to £17.50. This will cover half terms in October, Christmas, February and Easter. £200,000 will go to support third-party organisations, with the bulk going to support food banks with the purchase of food. And we will then massively expand the pot of money for referrals for food and fuel vouchers from the current £450,000 to £1.5 million. And we're encouraging all schools, charities and local government bodies and others to register with us as a referring body in preparation for this. We're expecting demand to be very high over the winter months, and so we're going to split the scheme into two, running half until the end of December or until exhausted, and another half from January to March. The Household Support Fund has been a very successful part of the Council's response to the cost of living pressures, and we believe the measures outlined will provide appropriate and targeted support to those most in need this winter. Thank you.
Thank you. Lee?
Thanks, Nick. Can I thank Richard and his team for all the work they do and obviously presenting the report today. I am pleased that we've been able to support many tens of thousands of our residents with the cost of food and fuel at times when they've needed it most. Our proposed model of working together with referring organisations throughout the county will ensure that professionals can recommend vulnerable residents to us who need support. We will continue to ensure that support reaches those in need. I am particularly pleased that the support for families on free school meals continues during the school holidays, as I know this is very much valued support to households. This money really does make a huge difference. Pleased to propose the 4 recommendations on the order paper. Thank you.
Thank you. Louise?
Yes, I'm happy to support the motion. Thank you.
And I've got Deborah.
Yeah, just want to say thank you for the additional funding for the children over the Christmas period. I think we all realise that this winter is going to be particularly tough, and also this Christmas. So the message is that there is funding available, there is support out there. So if any residents are struggling, to make sure that they do contact us, so we can either signpost them to other volunteer and community groups, or we'll be able to help them ourselves. So I don't want anyone to sit there thinking there's no help out there, because there is funding out here and support for everyone. So please get in touch with us.
Yep, it's all very good, and also £3.6 million to help people, I think is good news. But you know, I know we're just passing the money in from the government, but makes a meaningful difference to a lot of people. So it was moved by Lee, seconded by Louise. All in favour? Thank you, Richard. 7 is just an exception to contract rules, urgent actions taken by the chief to appoint a supplier to provide enhanced substance misuse, blah, blah, And we've got Mike here who's going to talk about it.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Not much to add to that one. So not for the first time, OHID, the Office of Health Improvement and Disparities, put out a call for bids for additional money for substance misuse services to supplement that we must do and pay for from the public health grant. We put a bid in that was successful, most of which goes to Turning Point, the current service provider. But there were two specific projects, one around understanding why some people don't come forward for substance misuse treatment, and another to enhance opportunities for employment for those leaving treatment to support their recovery journey, which Turning Point couldn't do. As is usual with OHID bids, there was a very tight deadline to both submit the bid. Then once you've got the money, you need to put the service in place as soon as you can. And you've also, in the bid process, you also need to name who's going to do the work, all of which meant, and it's not the first time we've had this, I say, that we were unable to go through the usual procurement route and come to Cabinet to advise Cabinet of what we were intending. So we had to take urgent action through the Chief Executive to do a direct award to Falcon Support Services. So this paper is a retrospective info to Cabinet of the action taken.
That's good, Mike. Louise?
Thanks. Yes, I'm pleased that we take this. You know, we have to go for any grants that are very available, and if it means it's short notice, then we have to take this route rather than lose the money.
Yep, I'm happy with it. I'll second it. All in favour? Thank you. 8 items referred from overview and scrutiny. We have none. And now we've got the urgent item, which Lauren's going to tell us about. And she's also got John Wilson with her. And then Christine will speak first. So it's over to you, John.
Thank you. So this item relates to a complaint that's been investigated by the local government ombudsman. The complaint relates to an assessment that was undertaken in March 2020, where an eligible person was assessed for adult social care services, but services weren't provided at the time. That, you recall, March 2020, it was just as the pandemic was beginning to be realised. We were just about to go into the first lockdown, and of course none of us knew how long that lockdown would last or how long restrictions would be in place. The council's position at the time was that officers felt an agreement had been made with the complainant not to receive services at that time due to the risks associated. Of course, subsequently, the complainant felt that that wasn't the case, and on the balance of probabilities, the ombudsman agreed with the complainant. The complainant then recontacted the council in December 2020, and a further assessment was undertaken, which was completed in March 21, leading to a further delay, and the ombudsman making the point that the council could probably have provided services at that time based on the earlier assessment, which is a fair point to make. We did reassess in by March 21. We agreed a service provision at that point, but then there was another further delay due to a disagreement around care charges, meaning that the actual service didn't take place until January 22. So the LGO concluded that given the council hadn't applied for any Care Act easements during that period, the council was obliged to follow existing processes and provide support throughout that period. The Ombudsman noted the contradictory evidence around whether the service had been agreed to be deferred, but on the balance of probabilities, the Ombudsman decided that the complainant had not agreed to that. The Ombudsman noted the delays in carrying out the two assessments and the further delay due to the charging issues. So the recommendations that the Ombudsman made were that the council should apologise to the complainant, and I can confirm a letter of apology was sent on the 17th of October. That the council makes financial recompense for distress and trouble caused, and that payment will be made by the 12th of December. That we should review all our processes around preparation of care and support plans. A briefing is being drafted and will be sent to all staff, and assessment training will be amended to reflect this outcome. And that we should review all care needs assessments carried out between March 2020 and March 21 to identify any that may be of a similar nature. So we've reviewed over 3,500 assessments undertaken during that period. We identified 606 where services were not commissioned on completion of the assessment. But once we discount people who are responsible for funding their own care, people who've made alternative arrangements, people admitted to hospital, people who've declined services, etc., there remain just 50 cases where COVID may have been a factor. Further analysis has now brought that figure down to 5, including this one. So we're doing further detailed analysis of those 5 cases to ensure that there wasn't a repetition of the issues that were identified in this case. So we've accepted the recommendations, and as I've just sort of laid out, we are beginning to address the actions that the Ombudsman requires of us. And I think Lauren's just going to talk about some more general requirements.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Leader. Just a couple of observations. The report's brought as an urgent item simply because of the timing of the release of the report by the Ombudsman on the 20th of October and the fact that it's subject to a strict embargo until that date. As it's a public report, there are a couple of additional requirements over and above the sort of normal run-of-the-mill Ombudsman type report. First of all, that it's brought to Cabinet. As a courtesy, I've taken steps to advise members of the Corporate Governance Committee as well, because of their oversight generally of complaints of this type. And secondly, there's a requirement that we place an advert in the 2 local newspapers, so the Leicester Mercury, probably in the Hinckley Times, and we've got put that in hand, so that will go out in the next day or so. And then a requirement, as John said, that we report back to the Ombudsman within 3 months, advising and confirming that we've completed the actions recommended. Cabinet's asked to note the report and direct that the recommendations of the Ombudsman are completed as set out in the report. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. This is yours, Christine.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I think that both departments have done everything they can on following up the comments from the Ombudsman, and I have no hesitation in saying I recommend the recommendations, support the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah.
Yeah, I'm happy to support the recommendation that we note this. I'll second that recommendation, and good to hear that work's progressing really quickly on the recommendations from the LGO.
Moved and seconded, all in favour? Thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you, Lauren. That concludes our business. Thank you.